Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation, right here, Jeff Waldorf with you on this Monday afternoon. Oh, holy shit. It is one day into the midterm elections. Oh my God. Tomorrow may either be a fantastic day or terrible. It either might be great or complete, absolute disaster. Oh boy. So we're going to see. I do have some news about some of the upcoming races, including some might be good news for the Democrats. But as usual, I'm going to come in, I'm going to give my commentary and a little bit of a warning, because it's almost as if, like, whenever polls show Democrats ahead, Republicans come out and basically either Republicans come out and basically destroy that, or people stay home. So I want to talk about that, because I'm looking at the polls and everything's looking good, but then it's like, oh shit, false sense of security, complacency, oh God. So I am worried about that. But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about the sanctions on Iran. Then we have Trump insanity with the polls. Also, we had a shooting over the weekend, disastrous shooting in Tallahassee. We're going to talk about that as well. And for those of you who are longtime viewers of the channel, 2 years ago, I did a segment about a woman, a doctor, who was on a plane. And she was a doctor, as I said before, and she's trying to help somebody, and the plane crew wouldn't believe it. So now, fast forward, as I said, 2 years later. Did they learn their lesson? Well, stick around. And then finally, Alex Jones is now a gay frog. You're going to love that. You're going to love that segment. That's great. But before I dive into these fantastic stories, I do want to give a lot of thanks to people, new patrons, people who signed up over the weekend as well to our Patreon campaign. So we are trying to get away from YouTube revenue, and that, because as I said before, YouTube revenue is unreliable. You can't build a business or sustain yourself on just YouTube alone. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a base out of patrons that will fund the show in perpetuity, right? So never have to worry about YouTube funding, never have to worry about demonetization, can do the stories that we want without having to worry about, doing things that monetize well. You know what I'm saying? So patreon.com/TYTNation. Thanks all of you who have signed up. Also thanks to people who have also donated the show through like Venmo and PayPal and things like that. You guys are awesome. Through the super chats, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And it really is heartening to see how much support there is for the show. And the messages that you guys have sent along with it, it's amazing. And I'm incredibly humbled by your guys' support. So with that, let's dive in. Let's start out with something very serious. Let's go to our first story. Okay. So President Trump and the Trump administration have finally done it. They have pretty much put back all the sanctions on Iran after pulling out of the Iran deal. Now, according to the BBC, the Trump administration has reinstated all the sanctions removed under the 2015 nuclear deal, targeting both Iran and some of the states that trade with it. Now, what's interesting about that is that the United States is the only one that signed the deal that actually backed out of that deal. So now what we have is European countries that are still vowing to do business with Iran. And they're saying, we don't care about your sanctions, Donald Trump. Screw you, screw your sanctions. We believe in the deal. And we think it's the best way. in order to make sure that we do not have a nuclear-armed Iran. And of course, you guys know I'm a believer in the deal because it was an actual good deal. Compare that, of course, to what Trump made with North Korea. And you can see the two deals couldn't be worlds apart. Now, one of Donald Trump's reasons, I guess, if there even is a reason that he states anyway, official reasons, I should say, is that, well, it's just a bad deal. It's a bad deal. Iran got everything that they wanted. Actually, no, we had unprecedented access to Iran's nuclear facilities. They had to give away most of their uranium, right, and their centrifuges. So what they had left, they were unable to create, or I should say produce or refine into weapons-grade material, right? So we did all that, and Donald Trump says, not good enough. Not good enough, I'm going to take it away. Here's the real reason, of course. He didn't like President Obama. He basically spent the first 2 years trying to undo everything President Obama has done. And then to try to claim credit. So he says, well, I'm going to get rid of the deal, and I'm going to put pressure on Iran in order to make a better deal. Well, if the better deal looks anything like what you did with North Korea, then we are totally screwed. Anyway, so back to the BBC here, right? So what is being impacted by this? Well, apparently 700 individuals, entities, vessels, and aircraft are now on the sanctions list, including major banks, oil exporters, and shipping companies. Now, the major thing that they're doing, though, is they're targeting the oil. That's the most significant sanction. And, of course, news of these sanctions going back into place, and they're snapping back into place. You have the Iranian economy doing terrible. Their currency, the rial, losing a lot of its value compared to the dollar. Of course, that is the effect that Donald Trump and the rest of the administration intended. Now we're going to screw you guys over. We're going to make your economy worse so that you come back to the table. So far right now, Iran is being pretty defiant. So, and that does not bode well for this kind of diplomacy. Now, what about the EU? I mentioned earlier, right? So the EU still believes in the deal. They're still honoring the deal, and they think it's still the best way. So how did they react to the sanctions? Well, the UK, Germany, and France, which are among the 5 countries that are committed to the nuclear pact, have all objected to this. They have promised to support European firms that, quote, do legitimate business with Iran, and have set up an alternative payment mechanism that will help companies trade without facing U.S. penalties, which, again, we have promised. So basically, okay, they're saying they're basically setting up a system where they don't need us anymore. Now, if you are concerned about America losing its influence over the world, well, then the Trump administration has just shown you that they don't care about that. They don't care about losing American influence, especially among our allies. Don't care. So that means that we are no longer going to be a world leader. Great. Fantastic. Way to go, Donald Trump. That's what happens when you go it alone, right? Now, I want to go to a couple of exemptions that were kind of interesting. Now, the Trump administration has granted some exceptions to 8 countries to continue importing Iranian oil. Now, they didn't name them. They didn't name them, but here's a few guesses, right? Italy, India, Japan, South Korea, Turkey, and China. So they're exempted from the rules, right? They're exempted from the sanctions. They can still buy Iranian oil. Fascinating. He said, too, will eventually stop imports. This is Stephen Mnuchin. He said, 2 would stop imports, and the other 6 would greatly reduce imports. And, of course, the reaction from Iran, they are very, very angry. There's a lot of protests in the streets, of course. But what's interesting is okay, you can expect that there's a lot of anger towards the U.S., but there are some, actually, some Iranians that are saying, you know what? No, not death to the U.S., not anything like that. Here we're going to do a, quote, hashtag sorry U.S. Embassy siege. Because these sanctions going back in Iran actually coincide with the U.S. Embassy siege back in 1979. So that's fascinating when it comes to the timing, right? Now, that hashtag has about 19,000 tweets from Iranians. One user saying, over the past 40 years, the Islamic regime of Iran tried to prevent the U.S. and Israel as Iran's enemies. Tried to present the U.S. and Israel as Iran's enemies. But Iranian people do not think like mullahs. We love all nations and all people of the world. Another one said, America is not our enemy. Our enemies have taken us as hostages in our own home. So that suggests that, like, there's a lot of people that are very, very upset with the current leadership. Now, is that a result of the sanctions? I actually don't think it is. I think the best thing for Iran, ironically, is to open it up, to allow U.S. corporations, I know, right? That strange idea coming from somebody who's always railing against the corporations, allow them to get into Iran and to start doing business with the Iranian people and start influencing the Iranian economy, right? You do that, once people start to get comfortable, they start to abandon Islamic religious fundamentalism. And not just Islamic, but any sort of religious fundamentalism. The wealthier people are, when people stop being so desperate, they stop clinging to religion, fundamentalist religion, so tightly, right? And you see a lot of young people in Iran are not interested in the Islamic fundamentalism. I mean, there were stories going back years ago where young people in Tehran were secretly getting together for like giant swimming pool orgies, right? That's some crazy stuff. But when you repress people so much, they start to turn on their oppressors. Putting these sanctions are not hurting the mullahs. These sanctions hurt regular Iranians. The same irregular Iranians that apparently the administration is counting on and doing some sort of revolution in Iran. You don't do that. Economic sanctions are actually the opposite of what you should do. Go back and make the same deal with Iran. Open it up to Western, corporations and Western culture, and you're going to see Iran change. So, look, that's what you should do. But of course, that's not what we're going to do, because we have right now, we have an ally in Israel that is itching to go to war with Iran. We have Saudi Arabia that is a so-called ally that is itching to go to war with Iran. We have people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo in the administration that have, throughout their past, have consistently pointed at Iran and said that I want to go to war. We should go to war with Iran. The neocons and the military-industrial complex, they want a war with Iran. And of course, snapping these sanctions back into place is one way that they're determined to do so. So to steer us in that direction, we should not go in that direction. We need to go back to do an Iran deal. And look, maybe if Donald Trump does what he did with NAFTA, goes back to the table and pretty much puts in the same deal but slaps his own name on it, I'll be happy. You know what? I'm not going to give him shit for that. Because overall, as I said before, the Iran deal is a good deal. We need to go back to that. We need to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran, of course, and that's the way to do it. And open them up. Open them up for business, right? And, I think that's the better way to get them to democratize. So that's just my opinion on that. And all I know is that what Trump is doing with these sanctions is setting us up for even more of a disaster. And that's not the direction that we need to go. Okay. I think I'm fairly clear on that. Okay. just 2 days before the election, President Trump invented a poll that says that he has a lot of support in the African American community. Now, this is hilarious because, as I said before, it's not a real poll. But first, let me go and reference this. In a tweet, he said, "New Fox poll shows a 40% approval rating by African Americans for President Trump. A record for Republicans. Thank you. A great honor." 40% approval rating among African Americans. Wow, that's really high. I mean, great job. Great job. Except that, no, it's actually not true. Apparently, there is no such poll, not even from Fox News. Now, let me show you an actual Fox News poll released last month, actually. It showed 29% approval of the president among all non-white registered voters. So this includes not just African Americans, but Latinos, Asians, etc. Right? So that's 29% among all of them. Not 40% among African Americans. And actually among among all registered voters, he has about 47%. Now look, is that higher than normal? It actually is a little bit higher than normal for Donald Trump, which is fascinating. I mean, look, he could go and run on economic issues like, hey, the economy is actually doing great. Now, I guess on the surface, if you don't understand anything about the economy, you can say, oh, yeah, look, it's doing great. Unemployment's at 4%. It's really, really low. Then again, you got to look at job quality. You got to look at wages versus inflation. And when you start to look at all those other individual factors, you realize the economy is actually kind of shit. But, you know, that's not a surprise. It's been shit for a while. It's been shit under Republicans, and it's been shit under Democrats because we haven't really addressed the real issues underlying the economy. Stagnant wages, right? The cost of living continue to go up, inflation, etc. But anyway, that would explain that he's got higher poll numbers among the general electorate. But among the African-American community, not even close. Now, there is some basis for this, though. He didn't just completely make it up out of thin air, although it's fairly close, right? The Washington Post pointed out the president might have been referring to a daily tracking poll performed by none other than right-leaning Rasmussen. Now, according to an October 29th report from Rasmussen, showed 40% approval for Trump among black voters. But here's the thing, right? So Rasmussen is right-leaning, and they oversample Republicans. They oversample conservatives. So that 40% could be, you know, they talk to like a group of 10 people, 10 black people, and 4 out of 10 are like, oh yeah, Trump's doing great. You really got to look at the methodology of those polls, right? Now, according to Fox News, which is weird that they talked to a Fox News person, a spokesperson, but apparently he told Talking Points Memo that, yes, Trump is referencing a Rasmussen poll. Now, look, Rasmussen has been very consistent on this. Back in August, they had a 36%, a poll that said 36% of black voters supported President Trump. But at the same time, it's like, look, here's the thing. That is a statistical outlier, right? Rasmussen, again, is a right-wing polling agency. And what they do is they oversample Republicans, right? Now, there is a flaw in their methodology. They stick out, but polls done by other polling firms that have interviewed far more African Americans all showed that black approval rating is actually far lower than 36%. It is somewhere between 6% and like 13%. So not very good among African American voters. So nonetheless, Trump hears that. Here's Fox News talk about Rasmussen and goes, it's a Fox News poll. I'm popular among African Americans. Wow. look, I shouldn't be surprised that he's basically making shit up. But I'm honestly, I don't know. I shouldn't be surprised, I guess. So there it is. Making things up. Now, one day before the election, boy, he's going to be very disappointed in the exit polls if he thinks that African Americans are going to vote for him. So, fascinating. Okay. One more election-related story here. And then we'll take a quick break. Okay. All right. The election is coming, and it might not be great for Republicans. Now, I say this with a ton of caveats. I'll go into those in a few minutes, but first, the Cook Political Report, who's a very mainstream, very respected report, now has Democrats. 9 races have been shifted towards Democrats in a new forecast released earlier today. That is the day before midterm elections. Now, let me go through some of those. For one, Cook moved 1 race, an open seat in Washington, where Representative Dave Reichert is retiring to leaning Democrat from toss-up. Now, it also moved 2 more races from lead Republican to toss-up. The one is in Pennsylvania. Now, this is a Pennsylvania race where Representative Scott Terry is facing a tough re-election. You also have Georgia's 6th district, right? You have Karen Handel, who is basically going in a very, very tough race, right? Now, you also have the race with Representative Darrell Issa going from leaning to likely Democrat. There's also 5 more races shifted by Cook that have the GOP favor to win. However, it shows that this is far closer than a lot of people, than a lot of these races normally are. You know why? Because we have unapologetic progressives that are running in a lot of these races. Now, notice some of the races where you have people that are centrists. They're not doing so well. The 2 big examples are Claire McCaskill and Heidi Heitkamp. Heidi Heitkamp maybe might squeeze out a win, but it's looking very, very difficult for her. In fact, she is down in the polls. Not only that, but so is Claire McCaskill. So here are 2 corporate-backed, red state conservative Democrats that are starting to lose. Oops. Here we go again. Now, in a lot of these places where you have progressives, you have races that are really close. For example, Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz. They're within a couple of points. Beto O'Rourke has a chance to unseat Ted Cruz. That's amazing. You also have Brian Kemp versus Stacey Abrams as another close race that could end up going the way of progressive. So that is, look, here's the thing, right? Again, 1,000 caveats coming, right? But Democrats are actually looking really good right now. For example, 3 races in Texas's 10th and 6th congressional districts and in West Virginia went from solid to likely Republican. Okay, so that's helps out Democrats, but not quite as much. But you have a lot of those earlier races, of course, that are now, likely Democrat or at least toss-up in places where Trump actually did very, very well. So that is interesting. Now, Democrats, they need to pick up about 23 seats in order to regain control of the House. There is a good possibility that they might actually be able to pull that off. Now, in the Senate's a lot harder because here we have a lot of Democrats that are actually defending their seats and defending them in red state areas. So it is possible and actually likely that Republicans are actually going to keep control of the Senate, maybe even pick up an edge. But in the House, look, if people come out and vote, if people get out there and if people who don't normally vote in midterms show up, then there could be an actual blue wave. It is all dependent on voter turnout. So that's why it's important. That's why I'm telling you guys, get out there. Get out there and actually vote. That's what makes the difference. Because all of this means nothing unless you actually get out there and exercise your right to vote. So that's why I'm like pushing it so hard, is because this doesn't mean a damn thing. These numbers, the forecasts, nothing. It means anything unless you actually get out there. And look, I've been encouraged by the early voting numbers. Millions of people turning out to vote. When, of course, in 2014, the last midterm election, around 800,000 showed up for early voting. Now it's over 2 million. So that's a big change. That's a big difference. People are excited, but you cannot be complacent. You can't sit on your ass. Vote like every election is the most important election. I know they say that, but you should always vote like it. Because, look, when it comes down to it, on the issues of policy, it is always important. Okay. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We have the Florida shooting. That is disastrous. So we'll be right back. Stay right here around the nation. everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf with you. Got a lot of super chats to read here, so let me get through them. Guy Tony says, yo. Yo, Guy. How's it going? Super FKB apparently is able to link songs on YouTube. Okay, that's cool. Jonathan Scott says, give a show YouTube revenue and feed it for a day. Support a show on Patreon and feed it for life. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So true. Patreon.com/TYDNation. Ryan himself, maybe disagreeing with my calls for action. That's interesting. He says, it's not too late for you guys to forfeit, you know, live to fight another day. No shame in that. Well, you know, when there is Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security on the line, which Mitch McConnell has promised to cut, not so much interested in doing so. So, we will politely decline your invitation to sit it out. At least I will politely decline. But thank you anyway. All right. So, let's dive back into the stories here. All right. So there's another shooting over the weekend. I know it's hard to keep track of all the different mass shootings that there are across the country, but this one happened in Tallahassee. Now, this was at a hot yoga studio, and basically what happened is that there was a man that came in and fired his weapon, killing 2 people. Now, the man is identified as Scott Burial. Now, he apparently killed 2 women and injured 4 other women, as well as a man. Those killed were identified as Dr. Nancy Vessem, 61 years old, who worked at Florida State University College of Medicine, and an FSU student, Mara Binkley, who was only 21 years old. So, obviously, a gigantic tragedy. Now, let's get into more details about who this person is. Who, by the way, after he had killed Dr. Vessem and Miss Binkley, he turned the gun on himself and killed himself, obviously. Now, who is this guy, right? And what drove him to do it? Well, apparently, this guy is known as an incel or involuntary celibate. Now, turns out he's got a history of creating misogynistic videos and songs. Great. Let me give you some examples here. Now, on a YouTube channel back in 2014, according to BuzzFeed, Burial, I believe, filmed several videos of himself offering extremely racist and misogynistic opinions, basically calling women sluts and whores, and talked about the collective treachery of women he had gone to high school with. Oh, lovely. Now, in one video called Plight of the Adolescent Male, he named Elliot Rodger. Elliot Rodger, of course, is the famous first incel shooter. He killed 6 people in Isla Vista, California. So now they talk about him. They hold him up as some sort of hero, some sort of martyr for the cause. Oh boy, that's super disgusting. If you hold someone like that up as a hero, there is something wrong with you. Anyway, now he said in this, I'd like to send a message now to the adolescent males that are in any position, that are in the position, the situation, the disposition of Elliot Rodger of not getting any. No love, no nothing. This endless wasteland that breeds this longing and this frustration. That was me, certainly, as an adolescent. Well, apparently, he did not grow out of that. And look, here's the thing. People like that, they kind of make their own, they make their own bed. They kind of make their own grave. And this time, apparently, it was literal. It turns out that maybe if you just respected women and as people and actually try to form real relationships with actual, with women and treat them as their people and stop expecting things from them. And that's the thing. That's the mindset of a lot of these people, right? They see women and sex as a commodity. Well, if I'm, if I treat them a certain way, then they're obligated to give me what I want. And what I want is sex. What I want is that, physical whatever, right? Well, that's not how shit works. Women are like a cash machine. If you put in enough kindness or whatever, or enough gifts, sex isn't going to pop out. That's not how shit works, right? So these people are the ultimate entitled males, right? So they think, oh, well, I'm entitled to a woman's body, and if they're not giving it to me, then I'm going to be mad at them because they're all whores and terrible. That's funny. How can they be whores when you're not getting it? It's just a classic, bit of just anger and frustration, which makes no sense. But anyway, another of Burrell's his videos was titled "Rebirth of My Misogynism," and of course he blames women for that rebirth. In the video, he said that they were capable of treachery and lying. And then he also spoke aggressively about women giving them their phone number, even when they had a boyfriend, and how angry it made him. He also mentioned a girl who canceled dates on him. Quote, "I could have ripped her head off." So, okay, look, if you want to say, okay, it seems like a pretty troubled guy. But what harm could he do? I mean, these are just videos. He's just venting his frustration. Well, it was a lot more than venting frustration. And this is before the shooting, right? Apparently, police said he had been previously investigated for literally harassing women on the street. For example, in 2012, 2 students of FSU reported him to police after he grabbed them in a sexual manner at a dining hall on campus. According to FSU Police Department reports, he was a student at the university at the time of the incident. 2 years later, when he was no longer affiliated with FSU, a campus employee called police to report a suspicious person after he saw him following a volleyball coach at a campus gym. The officer said he had initially told him that he was a student, but then later admitted, well, I was a student like way back when. I had actually graduated. And of course, he ended up being barred from campus. He had been issued a trespass warning for all of campus, according to the reports. A few weeks later, he was spotted on campus again and arrested for trespassing. So this person is obviously, had a lot of problems. And how did he deal with those problems? He dealt with those problems with violence. And that is horrific. Now, there's more. In 2016, he told a young woman who was laying out at the pool of an apartment complex that she had, quote, "a nice butt." She said, "Thank you." He then offered to put sunscreen on it. She told him, "No, thank you." He then asked her name, said it was nice to meet her, and then grabbed her ass. Oh, you don't do that. She says no. That means no. That just means no. So, again, this guy was blaming everyone else for his own problems. That's the thing with the incel community. It's not their fault that you're not getting any. It's your fault. You suck. You're being a loser. And I know it's you can be like, come on, Jeff. Well, how could you say that? Well, look, I was in that position once before. It's not easy for me to admit. But look, back when I was, in my early 20s, I had some bad relationships. And I went through something similar. And, sometimes I had thoughts that I think back and I'm like, oh my God, that's embarrassing. Right? So, look, I've been frustrated before. And, I understand the mindset that some of these people have. I'm not saying all of these people, but some is in like, I'm a nice person to this woman. Why doesn't she see that? Why doesn't she, understand why she's going out with assholes, right? It's always that thinking. And that, of course, can lead to very dark and terrible things. Now, luckily, I didn't go in that direction, right? Luckily, I realized that, hey, maybe, you know what? Women are people. and maybe we should actually treat them as people and actually not view people as women as objects. Oh my God, it's crazy, right? Well, these people don't see that. And what's really making it worse, making people not able to wake up from that deluded mindset, is now you have internet groups and you have people that reinforce that with each other. They get on chat rooms or, Discord or whatever, and complain to each other about how terrible women are. And it just reinforces this behavior. And of course, there are people who end up taking this to an extreme. And this is what happened with this guy. I mean, people like this, there is something deeply, deeply wrong with them, and deeply wrong within that culture of incel. And so, look, I don't know what to do about the problem, to be honest with you. I don't know if there's a legislative solution, but I do know that, maybe we should do something at least about easy access to guns. I know it's weird turning this into from incels to guns, but look, if everybody has easy access to guns, well, that's going to lead to more shootings. And so at least that might be a band-aid in this point, but we've got to find a way to make it so that these people don't hurt other people. Okay. Let's move on. All right. So this is a bit of a familiar story. About 2 years ago, I did a report where there was a black doctor on a plane who was trying to help out a fellow passenger, and the flight attendants, the flight crew, just couldn't believe that she could be a doctor. It was pretty much amazing going through that story. Well, now, 2 years later, we have another story in which the same exact thing has happened. Apparently showing that they haven't learned a goddamn thing. Now, let me get to the story here. Now, it's being reported that Dr. Fatima Cody Standard was on a Delta flight from Indianapolis to Boston when she noticed a woman next to her showing signs of distress. Well, now, what's she going to do? Well, she began to assist the woman, as doctors are supposed to do. She had medical knowledge, and so she rushed in to help. Now, Dr. Stanford, of course, she's black. So whenever that happens, apparently white people began to get a little suspicious. Now, apparently as she was giving assistance, a flight attendant had approached her and asked, "Hey, wait, are you a doctor?" Dr. Stanford said, "Yes," and without even being asked. Unlike the last story that we did, Dr. Stanford had her medical license with her. Now, that, of course, is important, as I'll mention later. Now, that medical license says she is a licensed physician, registered in Massachusetts, and even has the letters MD after her name. The flight attendant, of course, took a look at it and then walked away. And as Dr. Stanford was trying to calm the passenger, another flight attendant approached and also asked to see the license. She, too, then took a look and then walked away. So you had two flight attendants, each coming up to take a look at her medical license, which, by the way, she shouldn't be forced to carry on a plane. Now, what was different from the last one is that the woman who, I'm going to get her name here, Dr. Cross, 2 years ago, on a similar, with a similar situation, on a similar kind of flight, didn't have her medical license. And they kept asking, well, what are your credentials? What are your credentials? Well, here this woman is carrying credentials, shows two different flight attendants, And then they both walk away. That should be enough, right? Now, was it? Nope. Turns out the two flight attendants returned together at the same time and began another series of questions. They asked, quote, "Are you a head doctor?" Now, Dr. Stanford was like, wait, head doctor? What do you mean? What do you mean head doctor? Like brain surgeon? What? They asked, "Are you actually an MD?" The second flight attendant said, "Is this your license? This can't be your license, right?" Now, when the doctor asked what she meant, the flight attendant repeated the question, to which Dr. Stanford replied, "Why would I carry someone else's medical license?" That seems an odd question. Like, why would you ask me if this is my license? Of course it's my license. It's my medical license. You think I walk around with someone else's? But apparently, that's what these flight attendants literally thought. Like, no, there's no way that could be her medical license. She's black. She can't be a doctor, like a head doctor. Maybe like a nurse or something, or like a janitor, but a doctor? No. Now, Dr. Stanford is indeed a doctor. She practices obesity medicine at Massachusetts General Hospital. She is also a Harvard Medical School instructor. Now, she has explained, by the way, that she carries around her credentials proving that she is indeed a doctor since 2016. Since that last story where there was a black doctor on another Delta flight that was asked to show her credentials. So she's like, well, okay, if I bring my credentials with me, I'm not going to have a problem. But as you just saw, she brought her credentials and she still had a problem. Insanity. Now, after the encounter, she wrote, quote, "This is something that the medical community has embraced as a reality. When you Google a doctor, most of the pictures that come up are of a white man. And look, unfortunately, that is the common perception. People like, I don't know, Derek Shepherd and stuff like that, you know. Don't ask how I know that. I have a wife that loves Grey's Anatomy. So, that's the kind of picture that pops up. Not somebody who's black, right? But she added, there are other people who look like me, and I should not be called into question about something I've worked for my entire life. Now, imagine how insulting that would actually be. You work your ass off, you get great grades, you become a doctor, because that's something that you've always wanted to do. And then here you have a flight attendant that just doesn't believe you. Why? Because of the color of your skin. It's really sad when you think about it. Now, Dr. Stanford said that, look, after they were finished questioning her, they did not challenge her for the rest of the flight. As they were descending, she said one attendant told her that they would not need to check her license anymore because, quote, "It seems like you were able to handle everything." Well, that's her job. Of course she was able to handle everything. That's what she does for a living. Again, the disrespect that they showed her throughout this entire flight, throughout this entire emergency, when she's actually doing something that she's supposed to do. She is helping somebody, who has a medical issue. Now, Delta, of course, had apologized for this. But before I get to that, I have another quote here from Dr. Stanford. She basically said, "It never stopped. I just couldn't figure out why we were having this discussion." And look, again, unfortunately, this is a reality that we have because there are so many people that have that implicit bias. That bias tells you that, wait a minute, black doctor does not compute. But doctors are white and so is Santa. You know? That's what, unfortunately, people think of. So they're like, no, wait a minute. No, they can't be doctor. I've heard that black people are drug dealers. That's what Fox News tells me all the time. They're, Black Panthers and drug dealers and stuff and want handouts. No, a doctor? No. And look, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that just think that way without actually really realizing that they think that way. It's these stereotypes And we've really got to do something to solve those stereotypes, to get people away from that. Now, there's more, right? Now, as I said, Delta had apologized. On Thursday, Anthony Black, a Delta spokesperson, noted that the airline had changed its policy about medical credentials back in 2016 to say that flight attendants are not required to verify credentials from someone who says he or she is a physician, physician's assistant, nurse, paramedic, or emergency technician. Mr. Black said the flight attendants working on Dr. Stanford's flight, Flight 5935, were employed by Republic Airline, a Delta Connection partner. Hey, man, we already had this policy in place after the last time we got our asses in trouble. But so they didn't actually work for us. They're just a partner. But now we are extending our policy to make sure that they, even our partners understand that this policy and don't actually go and question black people and demand their credentials, which I think is, again, it's insane that people are actually doing that. And of course, 2016 is when Dr. Tamika Cross, when that situation, the very same situation happened to her as well. Now, what's interesting is that Dr. Cross and Dr. Stanford have actually met, and they've gotten together to talk about this kind of issue. Now, let me go to that here. Apparently, Dr. Stanford appeared with Dr. Cross on a panel about gender and bias in medicine just recently on October 19th at a conference sponsored by the Massachusetts Medical Society. Less than 2 weeks later, very, very ironic, Dr. Stanford was living her story all over. Apparently, look, this is still happening, and this has not changed. Hey, you know what would be a great idea? If we just stop judging people based on the color of their skin. That would be fantastic. But hey, apparently that takes a little bit of self-awareness. And so, yes, when you get into a situation and you feel compelled to ask somebody for their credentials, which you wouldn't if it were a white person claiming to be to be a doctor, to be a professional, maybe step back and think, why am I asking this person? What's the point of me asking this person? Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should trust that they are who they say they are, unless there is a big reason not to. And that reason should not be ever based on the color of their skin. Self-awareness, man. We need more of it. Okay. I'm going to come back. We got one more story here. So, stay right here. And we're going to talk about gay frogs. How's that for a segue? Around the nation. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Excuse me. I had a question asked to me saying, you didn't just compare, drug dealers to Black Panthers, did you? No, I didn't. I'm just saying that that's something that, like, uneducated, like, racist people do. I know the difference. They don't. They see all black people as pretty much the same. So that's what I'm pointing out, just the ridiculousness of it. Actually, literally not making that comparison. But okay, anyway. So let's go to gay frogs. Yeah, okay, bad sidebar. Not the one I'm looking for. All right, hold. I'm going to have to do this shit manually. I know, it's always weird to see how the sausage is made. Okay, anyway. There we go. Alex Jones has finally embraced his inner gay frog. Watch.
Look at me, I'm a gay frog. I'm so cool, I'm so neat. I'll never have children and I'm sterilized. But the media says I'm totally cool. I'm a gay frog, I'm a gay fish. It's so good, and I think my daddy atrazine. Thanks to atrazine, there'll be no more frogs. But we're gay, so it's cool. Thanks, atrazine.
Atrazine is a human sterilization agent.
What the fuck? What in the actual fuck did I just watch? I'm sure you're all asking that at home. I wonder how Alex Jones is doing. Oh, that bad, huh? Ouch. Okay, so look, this is actually fun because here you have Alex Jones literally dressing up in a frog suit. I don't know. Maybe he's into that. Maybe he's into like cosplay or something. I don't know. But you can hear him talking about what is it? Atrazine, I think. Yes, atrazine. So there is this this conspiracy theory, right, that he has been peddling for years, talking about how chemicals in the water are making frogs gay and they're making people gay, which is both sad / hilarious. In fact, Jones says humans are the victims of so-called estrogen mimickers that are being placed in juice boxes, water bottles, and tap water. Now, why would they do that? Well, it's to feminize people. Right. You know, you realize that that's not the same way as making people gay, right? I'm just saying. That's really, really insane. Now, again, this isn't new. In fact, we have videos of Jones talking about this in a less hilarious fashion. In fact, we're going to go back a couple of years to take a look at this video.
I'm not even getting into it, quite frankly. I mean, give me a break. You think I'm like, shocked by it, so I'm up here bashing it because I don't like gay people? I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Serious crap. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny.
No, you're wrong. It's completely 100% funny. Now, look, the reason that I'm laughing at this is because Alex Jones is basically performance art. Look, I didn't just say that. Alex Jones said that. He admitted during the court fight with custody of his kids that basically he's just bullshitting about this. And that's what that is. He is bullshitting. And look, I think he's actually getting pretty desperate, getting kicked off YouTube and all different social media. So, look, you do these, I mean, just insane videos to try to keep his audience. That's my guess, because I think the only thing that Alice Jones is interested in is not blowing open conspiracies that are harming Americans and chemicals in water. You know what chemical you should actually be worried about in the water? Lead in Flint. Now, has Alex Jones ever talked about Flint? What's going on in Flint, Michigan? No? Then maybe you should shut the fuck up about chemicals, right? If you're actually worried about chemicals in the water. Again, he's a huckster, does far-right conspiracy theories, and talks about gay bombs. So, nothing more than ridiculous performance art that deserves to be laughed at, not taken seriously. That's it. Again, fun little story. That's it, though. All I have for you guys today. Tomorrow is going to be an insane day. There is, of course, voting going on. I'm going to go out to vote. I suggest you get everybody else out to vote as well. You can vote. I'll vote. Everybody votes. You can be the like the Oprah of voting. So, do that, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place. Right here, around the nation. Jeff Waldorf. One more super chat I have here from Jay. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you guys donating to help the show stay on the air. I appreciate that. Independent media needs all the help that you can get at this point. So thank you all for helping me. Sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff's Politics or at ATN on TYT. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, guys.